When you're being haunted in your house, like terrifyingly, and then you find out later on after doing some research that you are validated because something terrible happened in that house, those are the stories that scare me the most. By the way, I do have to give a huge trigger warning for this one, and it does have to do with a child, so please keep that in mind. So in 2007, Gabby moved from San Francisco to Miami. She had just gotten a divorce, and she was moving back in with her mother to basically get back on her feet again. So she was waiting to get a new job, and she was saving up money. So her mom had a 3-story house, and she had a finished basement in it, and she had like this little studio area in her basement, and that is where Gabby was going to be staying. Had a queen bed, a little space for a couch, and it was just like this cozy little studio that she had going on down there. She loved it. She doesn't remember exactly when it started, but she started to have these weird dreams, and little by little these dreams would turn into reality. Pause. Does anyone else's dog sleep like this? Little weirdo. Like, bro, close your legs. Okay, let's get on with the story. So one night after one of these weird dreams, she wakes up in the middle of the night and she looks at the end of her bed, and there's a man standing there, and he's wearing a pleated shirt and blue jeans, and he's just staring at her like, get out of my house. Well, she wasn't really scared of seeing ghosts because apparently she had been seeing them her entire life. So what she did is she went over to her nightstand and she turned on the light, and this person was just gone. This is where it starts to get more sinister. The next night she falls asleep and she wakes up in the middle of the night, and she feels like something is watching her, and she suddenly gets goosebumps all over her entire body. So she sits up and she's about to like put her feet down on the floor when she looks down on the floor, and there's just a puddle of blood on the floor, and she's like, what the is that? So she goes to turn on her light with her lamp, and her lamp is one of those lamps where like it has that little stick in it where you push it in this way and it goes out the other side to turn it on, and then to turn it off you push it out the other way and the stick comes out the other side. Basically the lamp has to be manipulated by a person to turn it on and off. So she goes to turn it on to look at this puddle of blood that's on her floor, and she turns it on and it just goes, and it turns off. At this point, she calmly lays back down in her bed. She puts the covers over her head because she is like, I am not messing with this one. So a couple nights later, she wakes up in the middle of the night to someone talking in her living area. And she had a leather couch in her living area. And when you sit on a leather couch, it makes noises, right? So she hears somebody talking and they're like whispering. And then she suddenly hears them sit down on the couch. But then she hears someone making another noise on the other couch. And they're both leather. It sounds like something small is jumping up and down on her couch. Not a man, something or someone small just jumping up and down. So she's just hearing She said that this one, for some reason, really scared her. She got really scared. So she started saying the Lord's Prayer. She said that as soon as she started saying this prayer, the energy in that room shifted. These entities got so angry. She could literally feel it. But she doesn't care at this point because she's like, these entities are not taking over my studio. When suddenly she hears these 2 entities, 2 pairs of feet, run, like book it towards the back door. So they go out the door literally and close it. And then all of the dogs in the neighborhood just start going wild. And it's the middle of the night, mind you. So all of these dogs in the neighborhood are just barking, growling, and going wild. In that moment, she was like, okay, something is really going on here and I need to research what it is. But the one occurrence where she was like, okay, that's it, I have to move, was when she had this dream. So she falls asleep and it's nighttime in her dream. And she wakes up in her dream on her bed, and she sits up in her bed, but she hears the sound of a little boy crying. Very softly though, like almost like a whisper cry. So she gets up out of bed and to go see what it is. And she realizes that this crying is coming from the closet. So she slowly moves towards the closet, and the crying is just getting louder and louder. So she slowly opens the closet door, and there's a little boy sitting in the closet. He looks like grayish. He has his like head in his knees, and he's looking down at first, and then he looks up at her, and his face is just filled with sorrow. He was wearing a brown shirt and shorts. She was petrified. She literally said verbatim, she was scared to her bones. And suddenly, just like that, she wakes up and she has goosebumps all over her body. Well, the next day after she wakes up, her sister calls her. Her sister lives about 10 minutes away from her, and she's like, oh my God, Gabby, I had the weirdest dream last night. And Gabby's like, what was it? So she proceeds to tell her that she has this dream, and she wakes up in her dream and she's in Gabby's house, and she sits up in bed and she has goosebumps all over her body when suddenly she hears a little boy crying, but it's like a whisper cry. And you guys can guess where it goes from there. Every single detail was exactly the same as Gabby's dream. Gabby could not believe what she was hearing. She was in absolute shock, and this really scared her. Well, later on that day, that same night, her sister comes over with her computer, and they are absolutely determined to find out what happened in this house. After a little bit of research, they find out that 10 years prior, there was a Schmug-related robbery in that house. 2 armed men went into the house and unalived the father, and then went into the little boy's bedroom, found him in the closet, and unalived him. Seriously, so sad. I will never understand that. Like, for what? For what did the little boy do? How could you possibly have it in your heart to a child? I cannot even, it takes a special type of evil. It really does. There is a special place in hell for people like that. What did you guys think about this story? I think so many things align up here. First of all, the puddle of that she saw on the floor could have definitely been residual. She could have seen what had happened there, or part of what had happened there. The man standing at the end of her bed could definitely have been the father, and obviously the little boy in the closet, like, we know who that was. And it just breaks my heart to think of, like, that was how he was probably you guys know what I was going to say. I'm not going to go into detail about it. By the way, for those of you who want to know, this is the house. So that was the basement, and this is the house. So drop all your thoughts, opinions, and suggestions in the comments, but as always, please be respectful. These kinds of stories put me in such a bad mood sometimes. Sometimes I get these and they're like hard to read, and I'm not laughing. I don't think it's funny. That's my way of kind of coping with not crying. Because I don't want to cry in every video. That's sad. But I do think that they're important to tell because, you know, something did happen to that family. Something did happen to that little boy. And he was trying to communicate with this woman, I believe. And maybe he wanted his story to be known more. You know, you never know. But that's why I think they're important to tell. So I'm sorry. I hope that this didn't ruin anyone's day, but I did give a trigger warning at the beginning.
Let's talk about the first time I saw a ghost. If you're new here, hi. I usually talk about some pretty scary stuff, and I actually have an email where anyone who finds this page can send me their ghost stories. And normally I do talk about other people's ghost stories instead of my own, but this page did start with me talking about my own personal experiences. So I felt like, let's start that back up, because I have my own personal experiences that are absolutely bone-chilling. So let's get into it. So to better understand the story, my grandfather passed away on Valentine's Day in 2014-ish. My sister and I were out of school. It was definitely the summertime, like June-ish. We were staying at my aunt's house. And I just want to clarify that we used to stay at this house a lot. We were very familiar with the house. We were not uncomfortable with the house. It was like a second home to us. And just to put it in perspective, a core childhood memory for me was going over there every single Friday with my mom and just hanging out with all my cousins while my mom like hung out with my aunts, and it was just a good time all around. And the way that this house is set up is right when you walk in the door, you are on like the main level next to the basement door and the back door, and you have the option to go upstairs either directly next to the front door, or you can walk down past the basement a little bit and there's another entrance through like the kitchen area, if that makes sense. Almost like a split level, but not really like a split level house. Anyways, right when you walk through the front door, you can go up to the living room, like I said, and in the living room there is a couch. And particularly, this is a sectional couch that my aunt just got, and we thought it was so cool because not a ton of people that we knew had sectional couches, which just meant that my sister and I could sleep on the same couch. Now, being the good sister that I am, I let my sister have like the longer portion of the couch, like the fatter portion, and this portion of the couch in particular faced away from the staircase that led upstairs. So from the living room, you can see through the archway of the kitchen and up the stairs just barely, plus the front door that is like 3 stairs down. So I'm laying like pretty much directly towards the front door, and I can see up the stairs in the kitchen and obviously the front door. I have always been somebody who gets up very, very early, and in particular this day, I remember I woke up before my alarm clock, which was like probably 5:45. My sister, on the other hand, sleeps in religiously, so her getting up at 6 was like a absolute no, especially on a weekend. So I grabbed my phone. I am just aimlessly scrolling through OG Instagram, super bored in the morning because nobody's up yet, or so I thought. As I am scrolling on my phone, I see this full body white apparition walk out from the kitchen, in front of the staircase that leads upstairs, in front of the TV stand, down the stairs towards the front door, and disappear around the corner. Now, when I tell you, I thought that this was a trick of my eyes, and the window right next to us that led outside to a main street was just like a car passing by and it just happened to look like that. I genuinely mean that. and I brushed it off. And if you have been here for a long time, then you know when I start to rationalize how scary something is, something weird happens. And in this case, as I'm brushing it off and I'm like, oh, it's probably just a car passing, my little sister whispers in my ear, "Did you see that?" And mind you, my legs were facing right towards the direction that this thing like disappeared down the stairs and around the corner. So I do pretty much a full backflip onto her, and I'm like, "What are you talking about? It was just a trick of the eyes." And she was like, "No, that was somebody." So we just sat frozen in fear for like 5 minutes, thinking that we were just gonna see somebody, you know, come around the corner and be like, "Haha, just kidding, guys." And eventually I was like, okay, we need to calm ourselves down. So I put YouTube on my phone and we waited until my aunt was awake. And once she was awake, everything was fine. And we didn't tell her for months. And when we finally did tell her, she had the craziest story ever. But anyways, that's gonna do it for me. Stay tuned for more ghost stories.
Is it possible for two people to see the same thing only to come back and it ends up not being what you saw? Personal spooky story time. I think we witnessed a glitch. We have been having some work done on our vehicles. My cousins had come to help. My father-in-law had come to help, and they were bringing some tools of their own. On Halloween night, we were outside. We had a lot of people over, and my husband was looking at me and kind of pointing to something with his eyes. And I look at him, and he's like, "Put that away." I look down, and it is a yellow DeWalt drill. I grabbed the drill, I put it away, and that was the end of it. Later on that night, we talk, and he's like, "Where did you put the DeWalt?" I was like, "Why are you leaving your stuff outside?" And he tells me, "I don't own a DeWalt drill, I own a Ryobi." And I was like, "Oh yeah." Neither of us thought anything of it because, like I said, there was a lot of people coming to help us, so it must have been somebody's, and I thought it was my father-in-law's. The very next day, my father-in-law comes to visit us, the day after Halloween, and my husband says, "Hey, why did you leave your DeWalt drill outside in the front yard?" And my father-in-law says, "I don't have a DeWalt drill, I didn't bring one." Again, my husband and I are like, it must be my cousin's, it must be somebody's. Well, that same night, I ended up needing a drill to install something, and I go to the place where I had put it away. Only it wasn't a yellow DeWalt drill that was there. It was a green Ryobi, my husband's drill. I put it away upstairs in a secret spot. Nobody knew where I had put this drill, so it's not like someone would have swapped it, because that makes no sense. I'm shook, and I'm like, this is not what I put away. So I go downstairs with the drill, and I'm like, "Where's the yellow DeWalt drill?" My husband tells me, "When you put it away, why do you have mine?" And I said, "Wherever I hid the DeWalt drill, that is where this one was." Neither of us could explain it. We both saw a yellow DeWalt drill, not a green Ryobi. How can you explain that? We weren't drunk. We were both coherent. So how can you explain that? Is this some sort of glitch? Anyway, so this day, him and I always talk about it, and we're like, what do you think happened for real that night? Like, was it a green Ryobi? There's no way. There's no way. If you guys have any sort of glitch stories, please make sure you send them via DM or email, because I'd love to read them. And I just need some answers because we are confused.
You're probably familiar with the term 6-7 because it has become this popular trend amongst the younger generation. But a lot of people don't realize that 6-7 has been often associated with paranormal encounters. Now, there was a woman named Molly. Molly said that her son picked up the trend of saying 6-7, and he would say 6-7 after everything. And eventually it got to the point where she was annoyed. So she tells her son, "You can say it at school, you can say it around your friends, but I do not want to hear you say it around me." So she goes home one day, and she is sitting in the living room. She said she started to hear her son saying 6-7, 6-7, 6-7. So she got up, she walked into her son's room, and she said, "What's going on? Like, I told you not to say that number anymore. Like, it's annoying. Please stop." And her son's like, "I don't know what you're talking about. Like, I did not say that." She's like, "Okay, whatever. Just don't say it anymore." A couple days later, she is sitting in the living room again, and she sees a shadow go by. And she starts hearing 6-7, 6-7, 6-7, 6-7 over and over again. So she gets up, she goes to her son's room, and she's like, "I told you, stop saying that. Like, it's annoying. Please stop." And once again, her son pleads with her, like, "I did not say that." So it keeps happening over and over again. And this one particular day, she comes home from work, she goes into the kitchen, and on the refrigerator, there are these letter magnets. And she discovers that spelled out on the fridge with these magnets is 67DIE. So she runs into her son's room immediately, and she's like, "Okay, this has got to stop. Like, it is getting crazy. Like, you need to stop saying this word and, like, stop messing around because it's not funny." And once again, he says, "Mom, I promise you I am not doing this." So she grounds him. Later that night, she's in bed. And she turns over and she looks out at the doorway. She sees her son standing in the doorway. And he's just staring at her. And she's like, "Okay, yeah, can I help you?" And he turns around, walks down the hallway. So the next morning, she asks her son, "What did you want? Why did you come to my room?" And he's like, "Mom, like, I didn't do that. Like, that, I don't know what you're talking about." A couple weeks after this, she is in the kitchen. And all of a sudden, her son comes through the kitchen door, stands right by her, and he looks at her. But that's when she realizes, like, her son looks completely different. Like, something is off about him. And that's when he started to say 6-7, 6-7, 6-7, 6-7, 6-7, 6-7. And his voice got deeper and deeper and sort of darker as he said that. And she starts screaming because she's terrified. She knows this isn't her son. Her son comes running out of his bedroom into the kitchen. She grabs him, embraces him, and is like, "Look, I'm very sorry. I didn't mean to yell at you. And I know that it wasn't you saying that number." So she tells him, like, what had happened. And they both agreed that that number would never be mentioned again in their house.
The power cut out. 1 second, the ceiling light was humming. The next, black. Flicked the switch a few times. Nothing. Old house, bad wiring. They'd even mounted the switch wrong at first, I could tell, because of the bad patch job next to the switch. So, grabbed my flashlight, went downstairs. The beam lit up bare studs, cobwebs. Smelled of old metal, damp earth. Breaker panel hung crooked on the wall, like a mouth full of missing teeth. While I was scanning for the tripped switch, I noticed it. Dusty corner of a composition notebook, sticking out from one of the empty slots. I unscrewed the panel, pried it off, fished it out, wiped it on my sleeve, took it upstairs, more curious than I'd like to admit. Emily. That was the name, written inside the cover, in blue pen. The loops of the letters shaky. First page smelled faintly of mildew and copper. Entry 1. Locking the door was a bad idea. David got in anyway. He always gets in. He clicked his utility knife, open and closed. Click, click, click. Louder than yelling. He hit me so hard I thought I was going to throw up. I heard ringing. Tasted blood. On his way out, he hit the wall, right next to the light switch. Punched straight through the drywall. The page was smeared at the edges, faint brown fingerprint near the margin. Glance at the patched wall. Felt something in my stomach twist. Entry 2. I don't know if I should be writing this down. If he finds it, he might do to me what he was threatening Mom with. That night he held the knife to her throat. I hid behind the crawl space panel in the closet. I called someone about him. I had to do something. They didn't seem to care. I'm scared they'll tell him. The words tilted downhill, pressed harder with each line, like she was writing fast. I could almost hear the shallow breathing between sentences. The pastor came to the house today. I know he told him that I called, because David told him I wasn't going to make it to church this Sunday. I know he's going to do it. I'm terrified. I don't want to die. I don't want to leave Grace and Mom with him. I wish I'd never said anything. I'm going to hide this in the crawl space, so if he does it, there's evidence. Mom or Grace will find it. David's an electrician. He might check the breaker box, but he doesn't know about the crawl space. Maybe I'll end up putting him away after all. I closed the notebook. My thumb left a clean stripe across the dust on the cover. I went to the closet, pulled open the crawl space panel. The air that came out was colder than the rest of the house. Dry, mineral, still. I reached inside, fingers brushing old insulation and splinters. Something metal shuffled against my fingers. I pulled it out. A utility knife. Yellow handle, black tape around the grip. The hinge was stiff. The blade dull, mottled brown.
This is what happened when I told my aunt I saw a ghost in her house. If you're new here, hi. I usually talk about spooky, scary stuff, and a lot of this page is me talking about other people's stories, but I actually have a lot of my own personal experiences with paranormal, and this is one of them. So if you have no idea what I'm talking about right now, I would highly recommend watching the previous video that I just made about how my sister and I saw a ghost in our aunt's house, and we just didn't tell her for months and months and months. But something I left out of that video is the fact that that entity or whatever it was followed my sister and I for months, maybe even years. And way after the fact, we finally told my aunt and we said, you know, we didn't want to scare you in your own home, but this is what we saw. And we told her exactly what happened. And she looked at us and was like, you know, that's Grandpa, right? And immediately I'm like, I don't know if it really was, because I don't think Grandpa would scare us like that. And she goes, no, you have no idea. And when I said, what are you talking about? And she proceeds to tell me the scariest story that I've probably ever heard from somebody in my real life. And that was a couple weeks after my grandfather had passed, which was like February 2014. She started experiencing really strange things in her home. And I mean, like, she just never felt like she was alone. She felt like someone was watching her, etc., etc. Well, one night, her and my uncle are in bed sleeping, and they are both woken up by this buzzing noise. And it was so loud that both of them had woken up just randomly at like 2:30, 3 o'clock in the morning. When my uncle went into the bathroom, he finds that his clippers were turned on. They were battery powered, so he just shut it off, went back to sleep. Not 5 minutes has passed, and they are both awake again because there is a buzzing noise coming from the bathroom again. He walks into the bathroom, same thing, turns it off, and this time he takes the batteries out. Very important. So my uncle lays back down with my aunt, and they're both talking about it, about what are the coincidences, what are the odds of that happening. It's a little weird. Middle of the night, like I said. And something else that is important is my aunt and uncle have this like red digital old school alarm clock that was facing out towards them from the window ledge. They're looking at this clock, and all of a sudden they hear the buzzing noise again. And now they're both really freaked out because there are no batteries in the clippers, and if they go into the bathroom and the clippers aren't on, how are they running? My uncle gets up, goes to the bathroom, and the clippers are in fact on. When he turned back to look at my aunt and say, what is going on? Their alarm clock starts going off like crazy. Again, it's the middle of the night, so why is their alarm clock going off? They unplugged the alarm clock and it was going off so loud that it woke everyone else in the house up, and it didn't stop after they unplugged it. And what's really freaking me out is, on top of this story that I'm telling you, my phone is glitching as I'm filming this, and like it's cutting in and out. So I don't even know if the video is okay. But yeah, that's the story that she ended up telling me after I sat her down, and I was like, I actually saw something in your house and it really scared me. But anyways, that's gonna do it for me. Stay tuned for more ghost stories.
Hello and welcome back to a series of spooky stories, The Haunted Tea Spill. Again, no spooky shirt, but these necklaces, it comes in a 2-pack, and they are incredibly cute when you stack them, as you can see. Perfect stocking stuffers. They're cheap and cute. They're like $13. Two things that we love. Now on to the story. I wanted to share this spooky story that I experienced as a child. During my childhood, my parents would take me to visit our family in Mexico every year. We would stay at my maternal grandparents' house, which is known to have creepy vibes and unexplainable things happen. For context, this house is located in a former hacienda, which is filled with rich history from the mid-1800s. Also, for context, I would like to explain the layout of the grandparents' house. Please, God, let it be important to the story. So many people add that, and it has nothing to do with it. The house has a central courtyard, meaning every single room is disconnected from each other, and you have to go outside if you want to go to another room, the bathroom, etc. That sounds like it potentially would be important, yes. One year, when I was about 6 or 7 years old, I was getting ready for bed. As a child, I was afraid of the dark, and at my grandparents', it was always pitch black outside if the lights weren't on. My mom walked me to my bedroom and tucked me into one of the 2 beds. My mom left and turned the lights off on her way out. I fell asleep for some time and woke up in the middle of the night, and I looked over at the bed next to me. I saw a figure on the bed. At first, I thought it was one of my family members that had joined me after I'd fallen asleep. As I started to focus my vision, I realized it wasn't someone I knew. The person in the bed next to me was dressed in all black, wearing a poofy dress like the Victorian-style dresses with a black veil over her head. She was kneeling at the foot of the bed and facing the head of the bed. At the head of the bed, my grandma had hung a large cross along with her rosary. The way that the figure was kneeling, it looked like she was praying. Once I had fully processed what I was seeing, I remember feeling very scared. I didn't want to get up because I was scared of this woman, and I was also afraid of running outside in the dark too. My only choice was to hide under my blanket and lay perfectly still in hopes that this figure would disappear. Next morning, I didn't tell my parents because I didn't want to believe what I saw to be true. Instead, for the remainder of our stay, I made sure to always share share a room and bed with my older sister. Years later, when I was about 15, when we went to visit again, we were talking about scary things that we have seen in my grandparents' house. And my mom and my aunt start talking about how they've seen a woman in a black dress in multiple parts of the house. That's when I remember what I had seen years prior. It was so crazy because none of us had ever shared our own encounters with this figure, but yet we were all able to perfectly describe every single detail. The only thing that my aunt and my mom noted was that even though this woman was wearing a black veil, they never saw her face or head. They always just saw a floating veil. To this day, my grandparents' house still makes me feel uneasy and scared, and no one knows who this mysterious woman is. Has anyone done any research? Like, did you look up maybe potentially what it could be? If she was just like, you know, just chilling, praying at the foot of the bed, obviously seeing her and that not being someone that you know would be terrifying at the time. But if you're talking about it later on, it seems like hindsight, it might have not been that scary because if she was just praying, you know what I mean? Definitely scary at that time. Still very creepy, but not like threatening scary. You know what I mean? I don't know. I just feel like I would try and dig a little bit deeper to figure out, because if all of y'all have seen her and you can describe it in detail and the stories match perfectly, there's got to be something somewhere. You know what I mean? Let me know what y'all think in the comments. You can rate it on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being least scary, creepy, spooky, 10 being the most, if you want to. If you have a story of your own that you want to submit, you can do so on the link tree in my profile. I will see y'all at the next episode. Stay spooky, friends.
Back when I was in high school, I was incredibly sensitive. I would wake up at the slightest sound, pick up on things other people didn't notice. So I went to what's called a foreign language high school in Korea, and now if you're not familiar with the Korean education system, let me paint you a picture. These schools are pretty prestigious. Yeah, imagine taking every competitive, high-achieving student and cramming them into one building together. You know, the atmosphere was suffocating, and this is where it gets darker. This was an all-girls school, and there were stories about girls who couldn't handle the pressure, girls who jumped from the buildings, girls who took their own lives. There is this one exam, the Korean SAT, that happens once a year. And in the minds of these teenage girls, that single test determines their entire future. Fail and you're doomed. And that pressure cooker environment created something heavy in that school. Something that lingered in the air, in the walls, in every corner of those buildings. So this particular story takes place during my first year there. One day, our homeroom teacher suggests something completely out of left field, a classroom camping night. So he wanted all of us to stay late. So yeah, most of the girls were excited about it, but I wasn't particularly thrilled because I'm not a game person. I really suck at it. Everything starts out normal enough, and by around 9 or 10 p.m., we're all gathered in our classroom playing whatever games our teacher had organized. What I do remember is the layout of our classroom. So we had these sliding doors with a rectangular window at about head height. And through that window, you could see someone's head down to about their collarbone area. So we're playing games, and I'm terrible at them. So my attention starts to wander. And I find myself staring at the classroom door window without really meaning to. And there I see one of my classmates out in the hallway, poking her head in through the window, smiling, watching us play. And then I see something behind her, something black, something dark, and distinctly human-shaped. I am frozen in place. I take out my contact lenses right there in the middle of the game. I had terrible eyesight, and I thought maybe if I removed my lenses, everything would just blur away and I wouldn't have to see it anymore. But what happens next still haunts me. Even without my contacts, when everything else became a complete blur, that black shadow stayed crystal clear, and I was sure it was watching me. So I grabbed one of my friends and told her I needed some air, and we decided to walk to the convenience store just outside the school gates. So as we were walking toward the main gate, I noticed something odd. There is a car parked right there, just inside the school entrance. And we had to walk past this car anyway to get out of the gate. And as we get closer, I notice the interior light is on. My eyes drift toward the driver's side window as we pass. And there is someone in the driver's seat, a girl. She was wearing our school's summer uniform, but it was winter. Every single student in that school was wearing the heavy winter uniform. So why would someone be wearing the summer one? And why would a student be sitting in the driver's seat of a car? So I'm completely frozen again, but my legs keep moving forward. Something is just pulling my eyes toward it, and my eyes are locked on that driver's seat. And as I get closer, as the angle shifts and I can see more clearly through this window, there is no face. There is no head. From the neck up, nothing. Sitting perfectly still in that driver's seat. I couldn't say a word to my friend. I just grabbed her arm and started walking faster, quickly as I could, toward that convenience store. And the second we got inside, under those bright fluorescent lights, my legs just gave out. And in that moment, I knew with absolute certainty, I cannot stay at this school tonight. I cannot do this camping thing. I need to go home right now. I turned to my friend, trying to keep my voice steady. I saw something really weird. There was someone in that car with a light on, but she didn't have a head. I need to go home. I need to tell the teacher I'm leaving. And you know what my friend said to me? What car? There was no car. What's wrong with you? I went straight back to the classroom. I found my teacher and started rambling. And I'm sure I sounded absolutely insane, telling him I needed to go home. He kept asking if I was okay, looking at me like I was possessed or something. And later that night, he even called my parents, asking them to check on me. And I couldn't tell anyone what I'd really seen.
If you ever come across the cries of a baby in the middle of the night, in the middle of the woods, you definitely didn't hear anything. So Doug was a ranger for a national park located in the north part of Montana. One night on his regular shift, he ends up getting a call from a camper who happened to be in distress. Now this camper was about a 45-minute hike away from where Doug was, so he started to gear up and got ready to go. When Doug and his partner were about 30 minutes into their hike, something started to feel off. It was almost like a gut feeling at the pit of their stomach that something was just wrong. Now keep in mind, it is completely pitch black. All they have for light are those headlamps illuminating like right in front of them, and they are in the middle of grizzly territory. When they get about 10 miles away from the camper that needed help, they start to hear what sounds like a baby crying. This completely set Doug and his partner off, and they kicked it into high gear and started moving around, shouting as fast as they could, trying to figure out where this baby was coming from. Then Doug noticed something and his gut completely dropped. The sound of the baby crying sounded like it was being played on a loop. It just kept repeating itself over and over and over again. Doug told his partner to stop and to listen, just to confirm that Doug wasn't going crazy, and his partner also heard the same thing. Doug's partner was a new hire, and Doug saw when all of the color from his face completely drained. They decided to run as fast as they could away from that area, literally fearing for their lives. When they made it back to their post, there was no record of them ever receiving a distress call from any camper, nor did any camper ever reach them out again saying that they were in trouble. So they have no idea where that call even came from. I 100% believe that what they encountered was an SW. They have the ability to place phone calls and get you into situations where you're extremely vulnerable. So
let's talk about something absolutely terrifying. If you're new here, hi. I usually talk about spooky, scary stuff, and I actually have an email where anyone who finds this page can send me their ghost story. And let me tell you, these are actually freaking scary to the point where I don't read them during the nighttime and I do not film during the night. And the story I'm about to tell you is exactly why I don't do either of those things anymore. So let's get into it. This story comes from someone who would like to remain anonymous, and for obvious reasons, I'm going to respect that. And the person who sent me this email starts off this whole thing by saying that something has been haunting her family for years. And I absolutely hate saying that phrase, because if you've ever been haunted by something, you know exactly how terrifying and terrible this experience is. So the person who sent me this email says that one day she was hanging out in her room, her sister was downstairs in the living room, when all of a sudden, out of the corner of her eye, she sees this black figure walk into the room and go into the closet. Immediately no. But the person who sent me this email says that she thought it was her little sister trying to scare her. So she gets up, goes to the closet, opens it, and lo and behold, there is no one there. So she starts to freak out, runs downstairs, and the moment she gets downstairs to where her sister is, she finds her sister hiding between the wall and the couch, bawling her eyes out. And when she asks her sister, like, what is going on? Why are you crying? She says that she saw this black figure that tried to scare her. So number 2, immediate no. Again, immediate no. And this is when the person who sent me this email exchanges her story with her sister and says, I saw the same thing. And what I find very interesting is that these 2 incidences happen at the very same time, just at different parts in the house. I don't know much about that kind of haunting, but I just know being haunted is not something that a lot of people seek out. But if you've been here a long time, then you know I've been in a very similar situation where I saw a figure, and my little sister also saw the same figure at the same time, but in the same part of the house. So we knew that it was real. But anyways, that's gonna do it for me. Stay tuned for my ghost stories.
So I purchased this little mic here on the TikTok shop to hopefully filter any unwanted noises while I tell you all my spooky, scary stories. And this next story was actually sent in by Jackie. I'll tag her down below, so go give her a follow. It says, one night, me and my cousin were walking from my house to my grandma's house. The houses were kind of connected. There was a little caminito we had to walk through, maybe a 2-minute walk. Well, it was like 10 to 11 p.m. It was just us 2 walking, and there was this big fluffy tree on my grandma's. We looked to the tree, saw something white, like an owl or lechuza. We just ignored it and kept walking. Not even 5 seconds later, it jumps off the tree, turning into like a big cat. Me and my cousin just started running back to my house. And once we closed the door, we hear like a big bang on the window. We never saw anything like that again, but I've had other weird things happen. Thank you, Jackie, for sending this story in. You leave me so many questions. Do you live in an area where it could have been a possible mountain lion? Or was it something more sinister? Could it be somebody turned into an animal and was up there in the tree just watching y'all?
You can't make this stuff up. Might have known the story of real life boogeyman.
Woke up one day to see green maggots falling out of my vajayjay. As if that is not bad enough, tell me why my body started to smell like decomposed body. I have been sleeping with this guy for over a year now. Tell me why I woke up one day to see green maggots falling out of my vajayjay. As if that is not bad enough, tell me why my body started to smell like decomposed body. It is that bad. I could not leave my house. Story time. So in my early 20s, I met this guy in his late 40s. This guy told me clearly he doesn't want any relationship, nothing, just to sleep with me. In return, he would give me any amount of money I asked for, any gift, anything. He truly did that. He showered me with plenty of gifts, designer clothes, bags, shoes, latest iPhone, money. I'm talking about millions. Anyway, this is a lifestyle I have always wanted, so I didn't care about him sleeping with me. So I agreed to it. This went on for only 3 months when he slept with me. Then he woke up one day to drop the bombshell. He told me that if I want this lifestyle, I need to sleep with his pet snake. And he would give me even more than what he's already given me. I didn't want that to stop. I didn't want my friends to laugh at me. So what did I do? I agreed to it. And his pet snake started sleeping with me. The pet snake slept with me for a year. The guy himself only slept with me for only 3 months. Now, fast forward. I wake up one day to smelling this really pungent, disgusting smell. I thought it was just an infection and I brushed it off. Then one day I went to the toilet and I noticed these green maggots. I have never seen green maggots in my life before, but I saw these green maggots dropping out of my vajayjay. The stench, the smell that came with it, it was unbearable. I went to the hospital. The hospital nearly turned me away, but they had to check. And they said there's nothing wrong with me. They admitted me, monitored me, but still couldn't find anything wrong with me. Fast forward, I had to be discharged. I went home. I lost so much weight to the point that people couldn't even recognize me. Then came that pungent, disgusting smell. The smell of decomposing body. This was oozing out of my body. It was that bad. I could not leave the house. Anyway, my mum took me to prophet, from one prophet to another, from one pastor to another, but nothing. They could not help me. It got worse. My mum heard of this witch doctor. She decided to take me, but it was the last resort. Upon arrival, he threw these bones that they normally use, and he shook his head. He told me that, my daughter, there is nothing I can do for you. He asked me, do I have any idea what I put myself into? I said no. He said, do I know the man that I have been sleeping with? I said no. He said, did I at any point sleep with a pet snake? I said yes, because I was shocked. I never told this guy any of these things. He told me that my days are shorter on this earth, and there is nothing he can do for me. My mother asked him, what is going on? He said, the guy that I slept with, he did rituals. And that snake is not an ordinary snake, but a spiritual. That snake is not ordinary, it is spiritual. The guy slept with me for 3 months. He was taking away my youth. He was taking away my soul. He was taking away my spirit, my destiny. And then, when he swapped for the snake, the actual spiritual snake that he went into bondage with, that snake took everything away from me. Hence the reason why I started to release the maggots, the pungent, disgusting smell of that of a decomposing body. And therefore, there is nothing anyone can do to help me. I saw something I wasn't meant to see, and ever since that night, my life has never been the same. Story time. I was raised by my uncle and his wife. They've got children. They have always treated me very nice. They've never made me feel like, less or made me feel out of place. They loved me. And every night, we always watch a live Catholic mass on TV with my uncle and his wife. The kids, they never join in. They go to bed. On this particular night, I noticed something very strange, something I have never seen before. So when we were watching the live Catholic mass, the lights off as usual, my uncle soon dozed off and he started snoring. Shortly after that, his wife also started snoring. So I carry on watching the mass. I didn't pay any attention to it. Anyway, I started to feel very on at ease. I felt like something or someone was watching me. So feeling scared, I turned around to check, on my uncle and his wife. My uncle still fast asleep and snoring. Tell me why in the dark, my auntie, which is my uncle's wife, her eyes were glowing bright red and yellow. She locked those eyes on me. Then I had this unease feeling. I did not feel well that night. As soon as she realized that I had seen her, this woman cleared her throat and carried on to watch the TV like nothing happened. But then, before that, she gave me this look of disgust, which I will never forget up until this day. Ever since that happened, which was 2019, this family have been treating me like an outcast. They treat me very horrible, very different. Even up to date, when she sees me, my uncle's wife, she can never look at me in the face. Also, following that, they moved me from day school to boarding school. My life has been difficult. I have had to fight tooth and nail to make ends meet. People, if any of you have an idea what you think that thing that I saw that night is, please drop it in the comment section below, because I still just can't believe what I saw. And also, there's sudden change in behavior towards me. I have also noticed that my auntie, she is like the one in control. She controls my uncle. Anything she says, he does it. So if you have an idea, please drop it in the comment section below.
Story time on when I spent the night at this one friend's house and we played a scary game we shouldn't have. So this is the same friend's house that one night I got up in the middle of the night to use the bathroom and her grandmother's chair was rocking back and forth, but she wasn't in it. Yeah, this that same house. So it was one day, it wasn't even a nighttime. We went over there, I think it was after school, and this was around the time where people was playing Baby Blue Baby. So I, of course, was the one that really wanted to freaking play it. She didn't want to play it. But then eventually she was just like, okay, fuck it, let's play it.
So we in a bathroom, you know, you say baby blue, blue baby. I think you either say that like 3 times or 10 times. It was something like that. I think the first time we did it though, like we said it 3 times and then we spun around 3 times. Mind you, the lights in the bathroom was off and we was in front of a mirror doing it. And then the second time when we noticed like nothing happened, we did it I think 10 times and spun around 10 times, you know, in front of the mirror in the dark. And then after that, we stood looking in the mirror for a good couple seconds and we heard something in the bathroom with us. It didn't really sound like crazy or anything. It just sounded like something like moved in the bathroom, like moved the shower curtain or something. And I remember she was standing somewhere behind me and I was standing in front of her, but like she jumped up like it wasn't her that made the noise. So we both got so freaking scared. We ran out the bathroom and it was just normal after that. But I feel like that little encounter was scary because like anytime I played Bloody Mary, nothing happened. I'm not even gonna lie. Except for one time. And if y'all want that story time, y'all should definitely go searching down my my videos because I think I did do a story time on that.